Your phone buzzes. It's a message notification on your partner's screen, sitting face up on the table. You don't mean to look. You tell yourself it's none of your business. But your eyes are already there, and something tight and uncomfortable is rising in your chest before you've even read a single word. You know logically that this feeling is probably irrational. Nothing has happened. Nothing might ever happen. And yet your body has already reacted as if something has. Your heart rate ticks up. Your thoughts start running scenarios you have no evidence for. And somewhere underneath all of it, a single ancient question is quietly repeating itself. Is this person still mine? That reaction did not come from insecurity, and it did not come from watching too many dramatic movies. It came from something far older, something that was shaping human relationships long before anyone ever wrote the word love. And once you understand where that feeling actually comes from, jealousy might stop feeling like a flaw and start feeling like something much stranger. A survival tool that never got switched off. For most of your life, you've probably been told that jealousy is something to be ashamed of, a sign of low self-esteem, a character flaw to work on and eventually outgrow. But here's the part almost nobody explains. Jealousy shows up in virtually every human culture that has ever been studied, across wildly different values, religions, and family structures. Something that universal usually isn't a personality defect. It's usually a clue. To understand that clue, you have to go back to a problem your ancestors faced that had absolutely nothing to do with romance the way you think about it today. It had to do with survival, resources, and something biologists call parental investment. Picture a small group of early humans living roughly 2 million years ago. Raising a child in that world was brutal. Infants required years of feeding, protection, and teaching before they could survive on their own. A parent who invested time and energy into a child that wasn't biologically theirs was, in evolutionary terms, wasting an enormous amount of irreplaceable resources. And in a world where every calorie and every hour of protection mattered, that kind of mistake could be the difference between a family line continuing or quietly disappearing. This created two very different problems, one for each sex, and understanding that difference is the key to understanding jealousy itself. For ancient women, the risk wasn't about biological uncertainty. A woman always knew, without question, which child was hers. Her risk was different. If a partner's attention, resources, and protection drifted toward another woman, her own child's chances of survival dropped. Fewer calories, less protection, less help through a brutal winter. Her instinct to react strongly to emotional infidelity wasn't irrational jealousy. It was a highly tuned alarm system protecting the flow of resources her child depended on. For ancient men, the problem was almost the opposite. Because of a simple biological reality, a man could never be completely certain a child was his own. Unlike women, men faced what scientists call paternity uncertainty. If a partner had been with someone else, even briefly, a man risked spending years of protection, food, and teaching on a child that carried someone else's genes. Scientists studying evolutionary psychology have found that this specific uncertainty is why men's jealousy tends to spike more intensely around signs of physical infidelity, while women's jealousy tends to spike more intensely around signs of emotional infidelity. Two different ancient risks producing two different alarm systems. Neither pattern makes one sex more loving or more petty than the other. Both patterns are solving the same ancient problem from two completely different angles. Here's where it gets even more interesting, because your ancestors weren't relying on logic to solve this. Logic is slow. Threats to a relationship, historically, needed a much faster response than sitting down and rationally weighing the odds of betrayal. So evolution built something quicker, an emotion. Jealousy doesn't ask you to calculate probabilities. It hijacks your attention instantly, forces you to notice small details, a lingering glance, a name mentioned slightly too often, and pushes you to act before the situation can develop any further. In that sense, jealousy behaves a lot like pain. Pain doesn't wait for you to intellectually understand tissue damage before it makes you pull your hand off a hot stove. It reacts first and explains later. Jealousy works the same way in the context of relationships. It's a smoke alarm for your bond with another person, tuned to go off at the earliest possible signs of threat, long before you'd consciously piece together why you feel uneasy. But if jealousy is a survival tool, why does it so often feel excessive or even irrational in situations where there's genuinely nothing to worry about? This is where something crucial gets lost in translation between the ancient world and the one you live in now. Your alarm system was calibrated for a world of small, tightly knit tribes, where almost every social interaction happened face to face, in plain view, among people you saw constantly and could read easily. In that world, a subtle shift in someone's behavior toward your partner was actually meaningful information, because you had the full context to interpret it. Now picture your modern life. Your partner has hundreds of contacts on their phone, most of whom you've never met and never will. A like on a photo, a private message from a coworker, a friendly comment from a stranger online, none of this existed in the small, visible world your emotional alarm system was built for. Your ancient jealousy detector has no framework for interpreting a heart emoji from someone you've never seen in person. So it does the only thing it knows how to do. It treats ambiguous, low-context signals the same way it would treat a real, observable threat standing in front of your ancestors. Think of it like a smoke detector installed in a house that didn't exist when it was designed. The detector isn't malfunctioning. It's just responding to smoke using rules built for a completely different kind of building, one with far fewer materials that could set off false alarms. Researchers studying modern relationships have found something that supports this. People report far more jealousy-related distress over ambiguous digital interactions, like a mysterious follow or an unexplained like, than they do over clear, direct, in-person interactions, even though the digital version usually carries dramatically less actual risk. Your brain isn't measuring real danger accurately. It's pattern matching against ancient categories of threat that modern technology never anticipated. This doesn't mean every jealous feeling is baseless, and it would be an overreach to say jealousy is always irrational noise. Scientists are still researching exactly where the line falls between useful early warning signals and outdated overreactions. Sometimes jealousy correctly detects a genuine problem, but a huge portion of modern jealousy isn't about present danger at all. It's an ancient tool firing off in an environment it was never designed to operate in. There's another twist buried inside this story, one that connects directly to something you've probably felt but never quite named. Jealousy doesn't just appear when something is actively going wrong. It often spikes hardest in moments of uncertainty, the silence after an unanswered text, the vague explanation for where someone was, the slight change in tone during a phone call. Uncertainty, to your ancient brain, once meant something specific and dangerous. An inability to monitor a mate, which historically increased the odds that resources, attention, or reproductive opportunity were slipping away unnoticed. That's why not knowing often feels worse than knowing something difficult. Your brain would rather have painful information than no information at all, because uncertainty itself was once the single most dangerous state to be in when it came to protecting a relationship. So the next time jealousy flares up over something small, a delayed reply, an unfamiliar name, a vague answer, it's worth remembering what's actually happening underneath the discomfort. You're not broken and you're not simply insecure. You're running a detection system built across nearly 2 million years of relationships where resources, protection, and survival depended entirely on knowing exactly where you stood with the people closest to you. The world around that system has changed almost unrecognizably. Phones, social media, hundreds of casual digital connections, all of it arrived far faster than your emotional wiring could ever adapt to. But the core alarm, the one asking quietly, "Is this person still mine?" is exactly the same alarm your ancestors carried through every cold night, every long hunting season, every uncertain relationship that determined whether their children survived. Jealousy was never designed to make you suffer. It was designed to make you notice. Somewhere between those two things is where most people actually live, caught between an ancient alarm system and a modern world it was never built to understand. If you find yourself fascinated by the hidden instincts still shaping how you love, trust, and connect with people today, consider subscribing, because every week there's another piece of the story explaining why you are the way you are. The tribe is gone. The alarm it built inside you is still standing guard.